Welcome everyone to the weekly console gaming news. It's been quite a busy week with major updates including the official price increase for PS5 and PlayStation Plus subscription, Sony actively working on a portable PlayStation 5, and leaked gameplay footage of the Oblivion remaster. Well then, make yourselves comfortable, brew some tea, and let's dive into the latest events. On the official PlayStation channels, there was a 30-minute presentation of the new evacuation shooter by Sony and Bungie called Marathon. Releasing September 23rd, in my opinion, it's a very bold attempt for these companies to break into this genre, especially after the failure of Conquered. Marathon is a PvP extraction shooter in the style of Escape from Tarkov, but with original sci-fi aesthetics. Players control runners, cyber mercenaries exploring dangerous zones for survival and profit. I should note right away that Marathon will not be a free-to-play project, and the developers mentioned during the presentation that they'll be asking for a price comparable to Helldivers. I'm afraid Sony and Bungie's fearlessness with Marathon directly borders on madness. Apparently the Conquered story taught them nothing. Although today's episode will be full of controversial company decisions, such as the official price increase of PlayStation 5 in European, Middle Eastern, African, Australian, and New Zealand markets. Using Europe as a reference point, the digital edition PlayStation 5 will now cost €500 instead of the usual 450. In the 5.5 years that the PS5 has been on sale, this is the second price increase. As I'll remind you that at launch, the digital edition PS5 would have cost €400. This means the difference between the full version and digital edition is reduced to a minimum of €50, while if you want to buy the drive separately, it will cost €80. So buying the complete package saves you €30, which has some logic to it. I understand inflation and all that, but it's very questionable to raise the price of a device in the second half of its life cycle. Remember that the next generation will come out in late 27 or 28, not that this is a substantial reason to wait for the PS6, but paying full price definitely isn't worth it. As they say, discounts and sales are our everything. The next blow to gamers' wallets came with the price increase of the PlayStation Plus subscription, something I warned you about in last week's news. The updated prices, with an average increase of 35%, also affected South Korea, Turkey, and several other major regions. Prices were adjusted with a peg to the single currency of dollar or euro, so that on average a user pays about $110 or euros for an annual extra subscription. Don't think I'm trying to scare anyone, but I'm afraid the next price change, and of course upward, will affect games, as their prices haven't been recalculated for relatively long. This will largely affect new releases and will likely come like a bolt from the blue. Unfortunately, these are the realities we need to be prepared for when playing on the PlayStation platform today. Former PlayStation head Layden believes games should increase in price by $5 with each generation. Layden stated that accounting for inflation, modern games are cheaper than in 1999. In his opinion, if prices had risen gradually, standard games would now cost around $90, and no one would be surprised. He admitted he wanted to implement such a model during his time at Sony, but didn't get the chance. Currently, companies are afraid to set a new price trend, fearing it would alienate potential audiences and reduce overall revenue. It turns out only Nintendo, the industry flagship, isn't afraid to experiment and asks for a whole $90 for next-gen Mario. To dispel all this negativity, insider Kepler L2 reported that Sony is developing a new handheld that will run PS5 games, but with reduced resolution and performance. According to him, in terms of power, the device will presumably occupy an intermediate position between Xbox Series S and PS5. The console will be equipped with a 3nm chip with power consumption of about 15 watts at the level of Steam Deck, with architecture optimized for the mobile format. Development of the portable system and PlayStation 6 is progressing in parallel, with both consoles expected to release in late 2027. Apparently, the handheld's launch will coincide with the new generation of consoles. Let's remember PlayStation 5, how boldly we played PS4 games for the first 2 years. If the device is competitive with Steam Deck and Nintendo Switch, it will undoubtedly carve out its niche and be in demand among gamers. Sony announced that it's stopping production of 8K resolution televisions and generally no longer thinks about moving in the direction of this resolution. According to the company, the time for 8K content simply hasn't come yet, and judging by the fact that only about 1 to 2% of the elite use such TVs, its time will only come in about 10 years. In anticipation of the upcoming Days Gone remaster, Bend Studios shared that the PlayStation 5's power helped achieve a new level of realism they originally aimed for. The game has improved lighting, enhanced shadow quality, and added more detailed fog processing. Now nights are truly dark, and the moon looks natural. The blue sky has also gained realism. Days Gone always strive for visual realism, and on PlayStation 5 we were able to reach new heights, noted the project's creative director Kevin McAllister. The game also added a new Horde Assault mode with waves of zombies, a speedrun mode with time completion, and a permadeath mode. Release is April 25th on PS5, with owners of the full PS4 version needing to pay $10 for the next-gen remaster update. On May 15th, Take-Two will publish its financial report for the entire 25th year, and as soon as they do, we'll finally understand whether GTA 6 will be postponed to next year or if the game will actually release this fall. Shuhei Yoshida shared his impressions of Ghost of Yotei and noted that when he had the opportunity to play it in early development, it felt excellent. The game ran stably, almost without bugs or crashes, which is very rare for such early versions of projects. I remind you that Ghost of Yotei is scheduled for release in 2025, but so far without specifics. I dare suggest that the release will actually happen this fall. One of the official American retailers of disc versions of games briefly showed a pre-order for Silent Hill F for PlayStation 5. From the fleeting information, which the company successfully cleaned up, the release is planned for September 15th of this year. Price-wise, if the information wasn't erroneous, Konami will ask a modest $70 for the game, basically the standard price for such games now. Rumors have emerged about reviving the prototype series. They say Activision is right now making a new game in this franchise featuring Alex Mercer as the main character. And since Alex supposedly died at the end of the second part, this is most likely going to be a full remake of the first game. After several inaccurate insider tips regarding the Elder Scrolls Oblivion remaster, Jeff Grubb assured that the game will release between April 21st and 27th. As proof, the insider referenced covers and screenshots of the remaster on Virtuous Company's website. To be more specific, there are about 10 screenshots from the game location that demonstrate graphical improvements over the regular version. I honestly admit I'm a bit surprised because many companies would label such graphical changes as a full remake. But in this case, the game is called a remaster. An official cover and promotional materials with the disc version for Xbox Series were also presented. A disc version for PlayStation 5 is also expected, though there's no information about the price yet. Less than a year has passed, and the PlayStation Store has delivered a free demo of Star Wars Outlaws, another attempt by Ubisoft to attract a potential audience to their project after numerous updates, fixes, bugs, and terrible stealth improvements. For average consumers, this is another opportunity to try it out if you're planning to play Outlaws in the future, but I don't think this Star Wars title is worth buying for the simple reason that the probability of this project being added to the PlayStation Plus extra catalog or higher is very high. Bloober Team, developers of Silent Hill 2 Remake, presented a new portion of gameplay from their ambitious project Kronos, the New Dome. If you're possibly unaware, this is a full-fledged survival horror focusing on limited resources, inventory management, and complex combat mechanics. Roughly speaking, something of a Dead Space analog. The new footage showcases a setting combining Polish authenticity with analog science fiction. The game won't have a map for greater immersion. The developers of Kronos, the New Dome, deliberately abandoned the in-game map so that players orient themselves intuitively, memorizing environmental features and so on. A gameplay feature is that when aiming, the character slows down, creating tension like classic survival horrors, while charged shots deal more damage but require precise timing. Traps inspired by Dark Souls and changing pace in levels add difficulty, punishing inattentive and very fast players. In general, something very dark and scary is expected in the setting of 1980s Poland. At the very least, I hope it won't be boring. And now let's say a couple of words about subscription updates. First, this week, the April update for PlayStation Plus Extra became available, and now all owners of this subscription can download Hogwarts Legacy, Bloom and Rage, and several other fresh games. Second, Sony removed the Last Chance to Play tab from the subscription page and still hasn't said which games will leave next month. So it's quite possible that nothing will disappear from the subscription next month. Well, my dear viewers, thank you all for watching the Console Gaming News. This has been Console Drop Channel, and we'll hear each other again next week.